The night it happened, the house smelled like roasted chicken and something else, something that didn't belong anymore. My name is Nora Coleman, 28, born and raised in Roswell, Georgia, a town where people still wave at stoplights and your family's reputation is worth more than your paycheck. That night, I thought we were just having dinner. My parents, Harold and Ellen, sat across from me at the old oak table, the same one where we'd celebrated birthdays and graduations. My brother Lucas leaned back in his chair, smiling like he already knew the punchline to a joke I hadn't heard yet. Then Mom said it, too casually to sound innocent. "We just bought Lucas a Tesla," she said. "He's worked so hard, he deserves it." I froze. A Tesla. $100,000. Meanwhile, I was drowning under student loans, working late nights just to afford groceries. I swallowed hard and asked if they could help me with a small part of my debt. My father didn't even look up from his plate. "Nora," he said, his voice heavy with judgment, "you don't deserve any help. Be independent." The words cut through me like glass. Lucas smirked, spinning his shiny car key like a medal, the light catching it just right, as if the universe wanted to underline the humiliation. Mom nodded slowly, almost tired of pretending. That was it. No fight. No yelling. Just silence thick enough to choke on. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and said the only thing that came to mind, "Don't worry. I'll be independent." And I walked out. That night, I blocked their numbers, deleted their emails, and sat on the kitchen floor of my small apartment staring at the dark. The pain was real, but underneath it, something else flickered, something fierce. If I didn't deserve their help, fine. I would build a life so undeniable they'd choke on their own words. Independence, I realized, isn't given. It's claimed. It wasn't the first time they'd chosen him over me. Growing up in Roswell meant Sundays at Gray's Bakery, my parents' pride and joy, famous for peach cobbler that sold out before noon. Lucas was always the golden boy, front and center, covered in flour, bragging to customers. I was the shadow in the back, sweeping crumbs, refilling napkins, waiting for someone to see me. At 15, he got a gaming console and a cake shaped like a crown. At 17, a motorcycle. I got a secondhand sweater and, maybe next year. They said Lucas had potential. Apparently, straight A's weren't potential enough. When I earned a full academic scholarship to Georgia Tech, I thought maybe, finally, they'd be proud. They weren't. Mom sent me a $20 check with "Make it work" written on the note. Dad called once that year, not to ask how I was doing, but to see if Lucas could crash in my dorm during a concert weekend. Still, I tried. I kept calling, kept hoping. Every ignored message carved me a little smaller. When graduation came, I was top of my class, standing on that stage, searching the crowd for two faces that never showed. Lucas arrived an hour late, sunglasses indoors, saying they had a big order at the bakery. The applause around me felt distant, hollow, like clapping in an empty room. That was the first time I realized love could be conditional, and that maybe, in our family, mine had expired. After college, I threw myself into work. A small tech startup in Roswell was looking for a junior developer, fast learners only. I showed up with a portfolio full of messy code and caffeine breath. 10 of us shared a cramped office that smelled like ambition and burnt coffee. The CEO, Paul Bennett, believed in potential more than polish. We were trying to solve hospital data chaos, to stop the paperwork nightmares that cost lives. One night, after yet another 12-hour day, I pitched an idea for a new system, Health Sync, real-time patient records, accessible across departments, safe, clean, efficient. Paul raised an eyebrow. "That's ambitious," he said. "Let's see what you can do." So I did. Weeks blurred. My apartment became a war zone of sticky notes, energy drinks, and half-eaten instant noodles. Every bug I fixed, every crash I solved felt like reclaiming a piece of my worth. Then came Vanessa, senior developer, loud, confident, allergic to competition. During sprint planning, she cut me off mid-sentence. "That's cute," she said. "But let's be realistic." Her smirk lingered long after the meeting ended. I wanted to scream, but instead, I built quietly. A month later, when the beta launched, a local clinic tested it. Their message came back simple: paperwork time cut by half. Paul called me into his office. "You raised the bar for all of us," he said, and gave me the lead developer role, the one Vanessa had been gunning for. The night he told me, I walked home under the orange streetlights, smiling for the first time in months. For once, success didn't feel like survival. It felt like proof. Soon, HealthSync started spreading, first local hospitals, then Atlanta General, then Emory, Piedmont, Northside. My inbox filled with contracts and gratitude. One head of IT wrote, "Your app saved us hours every day." I printed that email and pinned it above my desk like scripture. By 28, I was a millionaire. I bought a $10 million mansion in Roswell's elite Cove neighborhood, not out of vanity, but as a symbol. Every marble countertop, every window catching the sunrise whispered one thing: I made it anyway. Then, I met Sean Parker. He was a venture capitalist with the kind of calm that made rooms quiet down. We met at a tech conference in Atlanta. He stayed after my keynote, asked thoughtful questions, and didn't talk over me once. We started meeting for coffee, then dinners, then midnight walks through Piedmont Park. He admired my work, but more than that, he respected my scars. "You're unstoppable," he said one night under the stars. And when he knelt down with a ring, I realized he saw not just who I'd become, but the girl I used to be. Our engagement party was small but radiant. My best friend Katie, sharp, loyal, irreverent, decorated the backyard with string lights and laughter. Paul gave a toast about grit and growth. Even Vanessa sent a short, surprisingly sincere email. For once, life felt full. Peaceful. Deserved. But peace has a way of being tested. One quiet evening, Sean and I were in the study when he glanced out the window. A black sedan crept past the gate. "Recognize that?" he asked. My heart dropped. Lucas's car. The same one from that dinner night years ago. The headlights paused on the driveway, then drifted away. Later, my phone buzzed, a group message I'd forgotten existed. Lucas had looped me in by mistake. "She's hoarding millions while we're scraping by," he'd written to my parents. Unbelievable. I didn't reply. I'd already said everything I needed to say in silence. A week later, an email came. Subject line: Stark Family Matters. Mom's tone started sweet, ended sour. The bakery was struggling. They needed help. "You could save us," she wrote. "Don't you owe us that much?" Dad chimed in about how their hard work had given me the discipline to succeed. My stomach turned. I reread their words, every one of them soaked in entitlement, and deleted the message. Then I drafted a single line: "I'm not responsible for your choices. Don't contact me again." I hit send, blocked them both, and sat there shaking, not from fear, but release. Rumors started soon after. Roswell's small-town circles love a scandal. Lucas told anyone who'd listen that I'd stolen company money, conned investors, cheated my way to success. My mother whispered to customers that I'd turned cold and greedy. My cousin posted online that I'd bribed hospital officials. Lies spread faster than truth, but I refused to feed them. My silence wasn't weakness, it was armor. I had learned, painfully, that arguing with liars only gives them more airtime. Still, one night, I broke that silence. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and wrote my truth. I wrote about growing up invisible, about working 2 jobs to stay in college, about the check that said, "Make it work." I wrote about how HealthSync wasn't built from money or luck, but from sleepless nights and stubborn hope. Family, I typed, isn't the people who demand your success, it's the ones who never made you beg for belief. Then I hit post. It went viral overnight. Colleagues, friends, strangers, they all shared it. "This is my story too," one woman wrote. The next morning, Gray's bakery was nearly empty. Reviews tanked. Locals stopped buying peach cobbler from people who disowned their own daughter. I drove by once. Through the window, I saw my mother wiping down a counter, her eyes hollow. For a moment, I felt the old ache, the little girl wanting to run in and fix everything. But compassion without boundaries isn't kindness. It's self-destruction. I kept driving. Days later, Lucas stormed into my office, red-faced, loud, spitting accusations. "You're destroying us," he yelled, drawing stares. Paul walked out of his glass office, calm and sharp. "This is unprofessional," he said, escorting him out. Lucas was fired from his sales job that same week. I didn't celebrate. I just felt quiet. Like a door had finally closed that was never supposed to be open. As for the bakery, it didn't survive. Debts piled up, customers vanished, and the famous Gray's sign came down one humid afternoon. I drove by again, this time not out of pity, but peace. The windows were boarded up. The air smelled like summer rain and endings. Somewhere inside me, forgiveness flickered, not for them, but for myself. I had spent years wishing they would become different people. Now, I was finally ready to stop waiting. At home, Sean was in the kitchen burning garlic, again, and laughing about it, again. Katie texted a picture from a hospital using HealthSync, 3 nurses smiling, one giving a thumbs up. "You changed their world," she wrote. I smiled, typing back, "They changed mine." Sometimes I sit on the back porch, watching the sky fade to gold, and I think about that dinner. About the words that started everything, "You don't deserve help. Be independent." And how, in a strange way, they were right. I didn't deserve their help, but I did deserve my own. I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're maps. They show you where you end and someone else begins. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is draw that line in permanent ink. If you're listening to this, and someone has ever told you to be independent as punishment, not empowerment, hear me clearly, you are allowed to want support. You are allowed to outgrow the people who never watered you. Independence doesn't mean isolation, it means choice. And you can choose yourself. I don't know if my parents ever talk about me now. Maybe they sit in their quiet kitchen and wonder when the laughter left. Maybe they blame me. Or maybe they finally understand that love isn't a transaction, it's an action. It's showing up. It's fairness. It's staying when things get hard. As for me, I've stopped waiting for apologies. I've stopped looking back. Because sometimes, the best revenge is peace. The best closure is a quiet morning where you realize you don't need anyone's permission to be proud of your own reflection. So if this story resonated with you, if you've ever been told you weren't worthy of help, or love, or belonging, remember this, you are allowed to rewrite the story. To set boundaries. To build your own table. To invite people who know how to stay. And to leave the door closed for those who don't. Because sometimes the most powerful sentence in your life will be the one you write after someone says you don't deserve help. It starts like this. Watch me. Sometimes, healing doesn't look like victory. It looks like silence. It looks like waking up one morning and realizing the anger's gone, and you don't even remember when it left. That's where I found myself a year later. HealthSync had expanded across the state. Hospitals from Tennessee to Florida adopted our software. I had more money than I ever thought I'd touch, but more than that, I had freedom, real, unshakable freedom. Yet peace isn't automatic. Even success can feel lonely when you've lived your whole life waiting for permission to be happy. I started therapy again, this time not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to build my new life on old pain. Dr. Ross smiled when I walked in. "So," she said, "you've achieved everything you once dreamed of. How does it feel?" I hesitated. Like I'm still proving something to people who stopped watching. She nodded slowly. "Maybe the goal now isn't to prove them wrong, maybe it's to stop performing for ghosts." That line stayed with me. For weeks, I carried it like a pebble in my pocket, turning it over, feeling its truth every time I caught myself replaying old conversations that would never change. I began walking every morning before sunrise, barefoot on the grass behind the house, letting dew soak my feet, listening to birds that didn't care about my past. Some mornings, I whispered, "I forgive you." Other mornings, I whispered, "I forgive me." One day, a letter arrived. No name, no return address, just Roswell postmark. I knew the handwriting before I opened it. My mother's loops, careful but uncertain. The paper smelled faintly of vanilla, the same scent she used to dab on her wrist before church. "Nora," it began. "We're sorry if we hurt you. Things have been hard since the bakery closed. We've lost a lot, not just money. We miss you." She didn't sign it, "Love." She didn't say, "I'm sorry." Just, "We miss you." I folded it back into the envelope, slid it into a drawer, and sat there staring at it. Part of me wanted to drive back to Roswell, to see them, to test if forgiveness was real. But another part, the wiser one, knew some doors, once closed, aren't meant to reopen. Forgiveness doesn't always require reunion. Sometimes it's just a prayer whispered at a distance. Months passed. Life moved forward like a quiet stream. I threw myself into a new project, a mentorship program for young women in tech. The idea came to me during a university talk when a shy freshman asked, "How did you do it? Without connections, without family support?" I told her the truth, I built what I needed. When you can't find guidance, you become it. We launched Code Forward, a nonprofit offering scholarships, laptops, and therapy sessions for girls from broken families who still dreamed of building something. Within 6 months, we had 30 ments. I watched them learn, stumble, rise, and it felt like rewriting my own childhood. Each success story felt like one of my old wounds finally healing. During one workshop, a girl named Eliza stood up and said, "My dad told me I'd never make it in tech because girls can't code." She looked at me, her voice shaking. "But now I have my first internship." The room erupted in applause. I smiled through tears, realizing that this was my real inheritance. Not the Tesla. Not the bakery. Not even the house on the hill. It was this ripple effect of resilience. Sean watched from the back of the room, pride glowing in his eyes. That night, over dinner, he said softly, "You've turned your pain into a bridge. Most people just drown in it." I laughed, a little embarrassed. Maybe I just got tired of swimming. But I knew what he meant. We can't control what breaks us, only what we build with the pieces. Then, life threw another test. It was late autumn when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me to. A woman's voice, trembling, came through. "Nora, it's Mom." For a second, I couldn't breathe. She explained that Dad had been hospitalized, heart complications. My mind raced. She said he wanted to see me. That he'd been asking for me. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, silent. A year ago, I would have hung up. But grief has a way of softening sharp edges. Against my better judgment, I said, "I'll come." The hospital in Roswell hadn't changed, same beige walls, same coffee that tasted like cardboard. When I walked into his room, he looked smaller, his arrogance dimmed. Machines hummed quietly. Mom sat by the window, her face pale and lined with guilt. He turned his head slowly, eyes struggling to focus. "Nora," his voice cracked. "You came." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him everything, that he broke something in me I've spent years trying to rebuild, but the words felt too heavy for the room. So I just said, "Yeah. I'm here." We sat in silence. The kind that weighs more than conversation ever could. After a while, he whispered, "You did good, kid. Better than I ever thought." For once, it didn't sound like judgment. It sounded like surrender. Mom's eyes filled, and I saw her open her mouth to apologize, but I stopped her with a quiet shake of my head. "It's okay," I said. "You don't have to explain anymore. Because forgiveness isn't about the other person deserving it. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of waiting for their change." When I left that hospital, the sunset was bleeding orange across the parking lot. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed, long, deep, steady. Something had ended, but something else had begun. A few months later, Dad passed away. The funeral was small. I didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. Lucas approached me afterward, eyes red, face pale. "You won, Nora," he said bitterly. "You got everything." I looked at him, really looked, at the boy who once twirled his car keys like a crown, now standing empty-handed in a churchyard. I said quietly, "No, Lucas. I lost, too. I just learned how to live with it." He didn't respond. Maybe he couldn't. He just turned and walked away, shoulders hunched, carrying his own ghosts. After the funeral, I drove back to Atlanta with the windows down. The wind tangled my hair, and for the first time in years, Roswell felt far behind me, not just in distance, but in weight. That night, Sean held me close, no questions asked. I cried, not out of sadness, but release. The little girl inside me, the one who'd begged for approval, finally exhaled. From then on, life slowed down in the best way. I spent weekends tending a garden in the backyard, barefoot in the dirt, watching things grow because I'd finally learned patience. Katie came over often, bringing her chaotic joy and laughter. We planned the wedding, but not obsessively. The joy wasn't in the show, it was in the ordinary. Sometimes, on quiet mornings, I'd sit on the porch with tea and reread that letter from Mom. I never responded. I didn't need to. Forgiveness had already happened the moment I decided not to hate them anymore. Years later, Code Forward expanded nationwide. Thousands of women found new paths, new voices, new lives. When Forbes featured me in an article titled, "From Disowned to Determined, the Woman Who Rebuilt Herself," I smiled, not for recognition, but for remembrance. Because behind every line of that story was the echo of a dinner table, a Tesla, and a sentence that tried to define me. Now, when I tell my story on stage, I always end it the same way. They told me I didn't deserve help. And they were right, in their world, I didn't. So I built my own. I pause. Let it breathe. Then I add softly, the funny thing about independence is, it's only lonely until you find people who earned theirs too. The audience always goes quiet. Some nod, some wipe their eyes. And afterward, someone always comes up to whisper, "That was my family too." To anyone listening right now, if you've ever been told you're on your own, that you don't deserve help, that your pain is your punishment, I want you to remember this: you are not broken for wanting love. You are not weak for drawing boundaries. And you are not selfish for choosing peace over obligation. Because independence isn't about doing everything alone, it's about refusing to let others define your worth. Tonight, as I record this, Sean is in the kitchen again, trying to fix the blender he swears he didn't break. Laughter floats down the hallway, warm and ordinary. I glance at the framed certificate on my office shelf, the one from Georgia Tech that came back marked, "Return to Sender." I keep it there, unopened, as a reminder. Some mail isn't meant to go back where it came from. It finds its address later, in your own home, your own peace, your own voice. And if you're still sitting at a table where someone tells you that you don't deserve help, I hope you stand up, walk out, and start building the life they said you couldn't. You don't owe them proof. You owe yourself freedom. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't "I forgive you." It's "Watch me heal." So if this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that you are allowed to choose yourself, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because maybe tonight, someone out there is sitting in their own kitchen, replaying those same cruel words, and maybe your share becomes the moment they stand up to. And when they do, the world shifts a little closer to kindness.